Is this thing on? Is it working? I think it's working. We're here. We're live. Technical difficulties. Take that. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode number 250 of the Canadian Football Countdown, a proud member of the Canadian Football Podcast Network and the Alternative Football Network. I feel like somebody needs one of those birthday horns or something to celebrate the moment, but we didn't bring props. I at least didn't. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first of our season preview series here for the 2024 CFL season as well. We're here to talk about the West Division and preview everything from the 5 teams out west. We got a number of other topics to touch on here before we get into that today as well. And we got the crew here. I'm Ryan, joined as usual by Trey and Adam. First up, Trey, how are you doing this evening? No baseball tonight in this weather?
No, but you'd be surprised the amount of coaches that this is age 5 to 7, and the amount of coaches that still wanted to try. It was amazing. But no baseball tonight. Just realized my kid spilled yogurt on my giraffe. So that's what I'm trying to clean. I'm like, hey, like I love this thing more than the kids, and they're ruining it. But they know that it's crazy. They know they do that. I'm like, I say to them, you know, I love you more than anything in this world. And my middle one goes, except for Squishy. And I'm like, okay, you got me. But no, other than that, we're doing great.
Yes, the famous Squishy of prior episodes fame. Great cameos throughout the 250 episode history.
I've only been here for like half of them, right? Like,
yeah, I'd say probably about half.
So.
Yeah, you're getting there around half. And the other half of the panel joining me here this evening is Adam. Adam, how are you doing?
I'm doing okay. Nice weather outside now. We had a little bit of rain this morning. And, yeah, everything's going well. Training camps are on. CFL is going. Everything's happening. And, yeah, maybe Trey will order some pizza like one of the other old episodes.
Oh, not today, but thinking me and Adam, we must be catching up to Mike for total games played here, huh? We must.
Got to be getting close by now.
It is close. I think you two joined. I want to say your intro episodes were like 134-ish around there. So we're at 250 now. So over 100 in the banks for you guys. Any quick favorite podcast memories from the 2+ years so far?
Mine probably was watching Trey try to do a podcast from the tub the one time.
What?
Weren't you in the tub one time when you're doing a
I don't think Ryan shut that down. I asked.
Oh, okay.
Because when I was in Calgary, they had a jacuzzi tub or something in the room. Right. So I asked, but Ryan was worried about the Twitch rules or something about
the terms of service.
My bikini was too spicy for the stream. I don't know, but I didn't quite make the air. That's a deleted scene, I guess.
Yeah.
Oh man.
There's too many good memories to think of. Also, you guys have only been here for 2 years and have done over 100 episodes. How did we? The show has been on the air for 10 years. We must have been really slacking for the first 8 if you've caught up the number of episodes almost in that same amount of time. So. Yes, lots of great memories here and many more episodes to come. So thank you, everybody, for your support of this show over the past 250 episodes and joining us on this fun little ride as we get to talk about CFL football and any other random topics that come to mind. Any food-related topics? We always kick the show off with a food thing. Is the food thing the yogurt on the giraffe this time?
I'm not happy about it.
You know, the other day on one of these on the Facebook page that I seen, somebody had a recipe for roasted raccoon. I was like, what?
That sounds like something down in Louisiana stuff down where they eat frogs and squirrels and stuff. You know, that's.
Louisiana, Steinbach, whatever you need.
That's the Louisiana Manitoba, man.
It's south of Winnipeg.
Which is kind of funny because they have that weird mix of French and Mennonite language, which is probably close to what they speak in Cajun. So it's
Shout out to all our listeners in Steinbach and Louisiana.
Oh, we just lost all three of them. It's okay.
Steinbach, Louisiana, and all of Manitoba.
Oh,
probably.
man.
Yeah. Well,
Adam throws out Steinbach. Okay.
Here's to the next 250. All right. Well, on that note, let's thank our sponsor. The Canadian Football Countdown is brought to you by presenting sponsor Game Time TV. You can learn more about it by visiting GameTimeTV.ca or Facebook.com/GameTimeTVMB. We're also live taking your comments and questions throughout the show. So we weren't sure if we were going to make it, if the technical difficulties would allow it, but we're here. So send those comments and questions if you are joining us in the live YouTube, Facebook, etc. feeds. And we'll discuss those throughout the show. Before we go any further, we do want to take the moment, as usual, to acknowledge that the Canadian Football Countdown is brought to you from Treaty 1 territory, traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Ojibwe, Dakota, and Dene peoples in the homeland of the Métis Nation, as well as from Treaty 4 territory, traditional territory of the Cree, Saulteaux, Dakota, Lakota, Nakota, and Métis Nation. If you're looking for more nonsense in between and CFL, NFL, NHL chat, or any of that, check out our Discord community. We've got a link in the episode description. It's free to join us over there on the Discord. And we'll probably have a lot more conversation going on in there heading towards CFL season. I've seen a little bit more activity even with training camps beginning. And yes, kind of buried the lead there. CFL training camps have begun officially. Milt Stegall lined up at rookie camp, made it out safe and sound.
Already a member of the Wall of Fame. It's amazing. Or the Ring of Honor. One practice.
I saw that tweet of yours, Adam. I didn't like it because I don't use that button on Twitter at all, but I did appreciate that tweet. Nobody gets this out.
Just classic, man. Only Milt Stegall can do that.
That might be one of your best. That might have been one of your best. I'm not going to lie. You've peaked. It's all downhill from here.
I've already thrown out Steinbach jokes, so
Oh, God.
All right, Milt Stegall went to rookie camp. Rookie camps have happened. Training camps started this week, and we've got our first CFL preseason game coming up this weekend, a May-long weekend, a holiday Monday, the 20th. Bombers and Riders are going to go head-to-head in their first preseason match. So, CFL season is quickly approaching, and we're very excited to get the season underway. The off-season has felt so long. I don't know if you guys feel the same way, but more than usual. Maybe not as much as when we had the CBA negotiations going on. With all the legal drama going on over the past couple of months, it has felt like forever.
Yeah. No, it has. And it's dragged out a little bit. Finally, it's starting to get a little bit better. And like I said, because it's an early season or two this year, it feels like weird that you're going to hear. I'm going to be listening to a CFL game while I'm seeding this year instead of listening to a CFL game usually when I'm combining or doing something else. So it'll be a little bit strange, but I'm game for it. Be nice to see how they're all doing. It sounds like Brandon just said in the chat, Shea Patterson's doing great at training camp. Could be the backup behind Trevor Harris. I guess that's fine.
Yeah, there we go. Adam's on point tonight. I feel like this is going to be a good one.
You better not mess up a single name. I don't want to hear no names.
Yeah, the pressure's on here, Adam. We'll see how that goes tonight. We're going to go through each of the teams and preview them a little later on in the show, but we do have a number of topics we want to get to first. Of course, we've been joking a lot to start the show this week, but there was some sad news in the sports world that did come out earlier today that we do want to touch on here briefly. Sports Center legend Darren Dutchyshen, I believe from Saskatchewan, correct?
Porcupine Plains, Saskatchewan.
Yeah, unfortunately passing away in his battle with cancer earlier today. It's sad. It's a sad moment. I don't know about you guys, but he was the staple of watching Sports Center. I used to, growing up, I'd watch Sports Center every single morning before school. And and Dutchy was a big part of that, real mainstay there. Great and seemingly a great guy. I mean, I've never met him myself, but seemed like a real great guy. So sad moments. Any thoughts? Any memories of Dutchy on SportsCenter?
Well, I remember that one where they did Rodsky and Dutch. That was just classic when they made that. But that was for Sports Desk back in the day when TSN, was a little bit older yet. They made this one little thing for Starsky and Hutch. They made a little bit of a cameo. That was hilarious. But Dutchy was always just one of those guys that is proud of being from Saskatchewan. Didn't matter what happened. He was a Sasky boy, as he called himself quite proudly. He was always on CFL. He would make no excuses. He was a Rider fan. He'd go to the Grey Cup when the Riders were there. He was so proud that time. I remember when the 101st Grey Cup was going on and the Riders won the Grey Cup against Hamilton. I remember looking over in the sidelines and him pumping his fist like there's no tomorrow and telling Hamilton fans where they can go. I mean, he didn't care. He was one of those guys that he would tell you anything he was thinking. He didn't have a filter. He didn't need one because he was a funny guy. He did what he had to do. And again, it's just proof that a guy that's from a town of I think Porcupine Plain is 200 people. Porcupine Plain used to play our team in hockey. It's just one of those little places from nowhere that a guy comes in and becomes the national sports guy, essentially. No, condolences to his family, and it's too soon. I mean, 57 years old is way too soon to go. Good guy. He did what he had to do, and he's going to be missed. That's for sure.
No, yeah, I agree. It's hard to have a memory because to me it was just all great. Every time, like Ryan, I grew up with that. If it wasn't Jay and Dan, it seemed to be him, right? And if you didn't want to deal with the Jay and Dan nonsense, he was just almost as exciting, but on his own in a kind of a slightly less way. But yeah, it was great. I can't even be mad. Stiegel got to be a Bomber fan when the Bombers finally made it. Dutchy deserved that just as much every time. He was one guy that when you showed his Rider colors, he couldn't get mad at it. He just did it because he did it respectfully, too. He's just a Saskatchewan guy. You bleed green out there. No matter if you live in Toronto now and are on TSN, you still bleed your colors, right? So no, he was the best. And it sucks because I haven't watched lately, but he's not been on even for a while too, because I think he's been battling something for a while. So I think I stopped watching the show when him and Dan kind of stopped being on it, right? So that's too bad.
Yeah, I think he briefly made a comeback to this show at some point in the last year, but unfortunately, his battle ended the way it did here earlier today, or in the last couple of days, whenever it officially happened. But
yeah, and if you get a chance, there's actually on TSN right now. There's a really nice tribute out to Darren Dutchyshen with all of his kind of highlights, and Rod Smith narrates it, and actually it's a really nicely done job. So if you do get a chance, go and take a look at it. It's well worth the watch.
I will say non-TSN SportsCenter memory as well. I mean, for a guy from Saskatchewan, it's got to be a dream that he made a cameo appearance in Corner Gas. Who can forget the episode where he interviews Brent about his hockey performance? Great show.
It was those kind of things. It just Dutchy would have been in his glory to see those things. So I guarantee he enjoyed himself and all of that. And yeah, he was a old strong Sasky boy is what he was, and ended up becoming the head of the SportsCenter desk.
I remember too when they did that Crafts Hockeyville. I don't know if they still do that, or do they? Yeah, I feel like he went there a lot, and anytime
he was always a big part of it. Yeah,
we had the live crowd was almost better. You know what I mean? He needed the crowd to really. I mean, he was perfect without it, but the crowd too. He knew how to play to it. One of your. There's few TSN people where you're like they're stuck in your head, and he's definitely up there. So Yeah,
absolutely. It's like we all said, condolences to family, friends, all his colleagues, and everything, and definitely live on in everybody's memories. All right. There's really no, I feel like normally I'm pretty good at transitions between topics. There's no easy way to transition between news like that into another one. So we'll just get into the other one.
Could you imagine being a news anchor? You're like, the little dog found his home, but later there was a mass shooting. You know what I mean? Like, how do they do that?
Yeah.
I could throw the word Steinbeck if it helps to try and transfer something.
Steinbeck, you don't want to hear about them in the news.
All right.
No.
Another guy you might be tired of hearing about in the news. There we go. There's the transition. The Chad Kelly saga goes on. Of course, last episode we talked about how Chad Kelly had been suspended for at minimum 9 games by the CFL for his conduct and his sexual harassment case that was ongoing there. And it was a 9-game suspension, but then all of a sudden Chad Kelly showed up at rookie camp to participate, which supposedly legally he's allowed to do in the CBA, and it's up to the team to decide whether a player can be involved in team activities or not. So he showed up to rookie camp, big storm all over social media, rightfully so. For that situation ongoing. And now main training camp started, and Chad Kelly did not report to training camp. There was talk that this team had put him on the suspended list. Then there was talk from the team that no, they didn't actually put him on the suspended list. And just earlier today, I believe it was, Kelly himself tweeting out a long message saying that he has removed himself from training camp to not be a distraction and will stay away from the team and earn his reinstatement into the CFL as the legal stuff goes on. So lots of new developments in the ongoing saga. Any thoughts, Trey, on where we're at right now with the Kelly situation?
Oh man. I don't know. Maybe this is my messed up mind, but I keep seeing people be happy that he blocked them on Twitter. I'm almost like still kind of happy he follows me because that's like OJ follow me right now, or you know what I mean? Like, which no matter how bad it gets, it's kind of cool that I have his follow, even regardless of how bad it gets. But seriously though, I've said it enough on our Discord. I don't want to sound like. Yes, it's a nightmare for the Argos, but are they not a part of this civil lawsuit as well? So like I said, if they told the guy not to come, I could see it. I watched enough Suits. You know what I mean? The other lawyer would have been, well, why did you tell him not to come if he didn't do anything or you didn't do anything? That's kind of my sense of it, especially if you could tell by Pinball's answer when he gave it that first day, because he probably, like I said, the Argos are owned by MLSC. They probably hire the most expensive lawyers in Canada, if not like some of the world. So they probably know how to take care of themselves when you have the Argos, the Raptors, part of the Jays is owned by Bell. You know what I mean? So I think their lawyers are going to be telling them what to say and not to say and what to do and not to do. And the one thought I had, and as fortunate it is, we're a society that we think about the moment where everyone wants him gone now. But like I said, does anyone talk about Deshaun Watson really anymore? Everything's fine now. You know what I mean? Because it's a year later. You don't hear it the same as it was last year, right? And you don't hear it the same on other guys. And for this kind of for off-field stuff, it seems we have a short memory. So the Argos were probably playing that game where they're like, everyone's gonna be mad at us today, but when next year, when he's not on the team anymore, because I don't think this will fall unless the Argos are found wrongdoing on their side. The Chad Kelly part doesn't land much on the team, I don't think, normally. But the firing part is interesting, and I think that's what they're doing. Adam?
Yeah, no, I think you're right there, Trey. I mean, you look at other teams, and they've signed some pretty questionable players over the years, right? I mean, you look at what Saskatchewan had last 2 years before this, right? Yeah. How many people even mention that anymore?
That's what I mean. This doesn't follow it. It seems on-field stuff, drug tests and gambling, that seems to follow you around more. Well, we still talk about Pete Rose.
A little bit, and I mean, even the drug tests. I mean, technically, last year the Riders had a guy that failed the drug test.
Okay, if you're superstars, because we still talk about Barry Bonds and A-Rod and stuff like in certain sports. Football, we don't talk about him as much. The only person I really hear about that is everyone wants to crucify Andrew Harris still.
Well, that's because we're Rider fans.
That's fair.
But, at that time. But I mean,
I don't know if this one's gonna die down as quick. No? I mean, maybe Deshaun Watson before all of the stuff with him. What was a top tier quarterback? Correct? Or where was he in the tiers of quarterback?
He should have been, but he was on a lousy team that's good now with CJ Stroud.
Right. Okay. Gotcha. Whereas, you talk about other CFL teams have brought in guys who have done questionable things in the past, but in terms of the caliber of the stardom of the player, this was the league MVP last season, right? Or the league MOP in terms of Chad Kelly. So, this is big news and it's a serious situation. And I hope it's clear in all this discussion that none of us condone any of his actions and we're actively disproving of them here. But I totally agree and see the side that Trey's saying of it's messy with the legal case and the Argos probably being involved in it from the firing side as well, where their actions could directly play into the outcome of the case that could go against them as well. So
that's what I mean. Even the CFL, they're going to say if they're part of it too, because they're the brand of the Argos. If they're going to sit there, they'll say, "Well, yeah, we did the 9 game for PR, but he could still have went. It was the art." You know what I mean? It's going to be a pointing the finger game in whatever many years this goes to civil or court, because it's only civil, right? Not changing the shittiness of the thing, but it's not like he could go to jail.
Here's the thing. Here's what I look at in this whole thing. I mean, first of all, if Chad Kelly's 3 out of the 6 things were proven by an independent guy and they seen this, there's something there. If you're the Argonauts, you send them home. You do not want any. If you're a media company, you don't want anything to have them there as any sort of distraction. Chad Kelly decided finally this is the right thing. I should sit out until this gets settled, because honestly, it would have been messier on the Argos if he's anywhere near there, and on the CFL and on the partners and all the other stuff. So that guaranteed that had to play into this. What I look at though is, again, these things go and they go to the wayside so much, and people always demand that they have to have perfectly clean characters on teams all the time, right? Teams have to be, the players have to be just pristine, right? Look at how many players over the years, and I'm not saying that this is acceptable. It is not acceptable. But Adrian Peterson played football after what he did.
Yep.
Michael Vick played football after what he did, and he went to jail.
Yep.
That's what I mean.
Ray Lewis was charged with conspiracy of murder, and he played a full career because he did that when he was in college. And
Hernandez was playing for the Patriots when they pulled him over and arrested him for murder.
What about this KC guy right now that was just going 120 miles an hour? Rice, was it that?
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, apparently he was waving a gun at people. You know what I mean? Like,
and it's not just football. It's the NHL. It's all these other teams.
Football's the worst.
Look what Danny Healy did back in the day.
The worst. For whatever reason, football's the worst. But it happens in our leagues. There's the basketball player, I can't remember his name right now, plays for the Nuggets too. He was doing crazy things. We have it in all sports because it's an unfortunate thing, but how many guys that they probably come from a poor family or a lower income family, next thing you know, they're the big shot on college, or you know what I mean, this big ego thing. CTE probably doesn't help, if you want to be honest. And they get money, they get access to drugs, they get access to women. And that's when I could stop at women and bad decisions start happening, right, boys? But, drugs, alcohol, and money, everything's going to go to shit. And the point was, Chad Kelly probably came from a university, a small town or whatever town. He was a star quarterback. What girl wouldn't want to date him? Goes to college. What girl wouldn't want to date him? And now into Toronto, he's a small fish. If he wants girls, he should probably for the Rough Riders. Then everyone would know him. But in Toronto, no one's going to know anyone other than Austin Matthews, right? And Laddie.
So they might know Mitch Marner too, because
that's right. But you know what I mean? They're going to know. Yeah. So I don't know. I understand again, legally speaking, I understand the deny, because like I said, even if they're caught you on video, you still deny just in case half the jury's blind, because they'd be like, maybe that's not you.
Yeah. And
then you get off on it. Everyone gets off on a technicality, no contest technicality. But again, civil court's a little different, and the court of public opinion's different. But I understand the legal standpoint, you have to deny. But I don't know what's going on anymore with the CFL.
And that's where it's a conflict between the legal side of things and the moral side of things, right? Like the Argos, the measures they're taking probably makes sense for them from a legal side. Is it moral? No. They should absolutely be sending Chad Kelly home, and he should not be anywhere near the team until until this case resolves, and in the event that it's proven that he was innocent in all of it. But they're tangled in this legal mess right now. And we'll just keep, I guess, talking about it more as more info comes out on it. And this is going to be a storyline the entire season long. Every week with the Argos games, it's they're going to be dissect.
What about the PA not even getting it? That was kind of weird too, right? Didn't the PA have to request to get the document from the league? And I feel like
the league tried to deny it or something.
Yeah, that to me, that should just be common things that you give to your union. But unless is the CFL, is there like a stupid law where it's like, oh, this could have incriminating evidence on it, so if we give it to the PA, it can then wind up in the defendant's lawyer's hands? Is that one of those things? I don't know. But then again, that's even more fishy.
It's
weird.
Yeah.
Can we answer a question here on the old chats here?
Sure, yeah.
Brandon's been talking a little bit about the Riders here, and I know he wants to know a little bit about the quarterback situation there. So far, what I've heard from camp is that Shea Patterson's having one heck of a good camp. I've heard that Jack Cohn has had a fairly good camp, and Mason Fine is having a Mason Fine kind of camp. I never heard nothing on Mason Fine.
All-star.
Yeah. Trevor Harris, I mean, he knows he's the number one. There's no competition. Trevor Harris is number one in Saskatchewan. Now, what Brandon put in the chat was, I'm going to say that Mason Fine doesn't do good. If he doesn't do good in preseason game, Riders could cut him or put him in the practice roster. Fair point. Somebody on that roster is getting cut. It's going to be one of the four: Fine, Pipkin, Cohn, or Patterson. Right now, if I have to guess from what I've heard from all the sources from training camp, Patterson's looking like number 2 right now. Pipkin is a running quarterback, is your short yardage quarterback. He's always been that. And Cohn sounds like he's a guy of the future, so he's a practice roster guy. So you could be very right there, Brandon, where you say that Mason Fine could get cut before or just after the preseason games. I could see it. I honestly could. So, and especially if he has one of the bigger contracts as a backup. So, and you know what? I'm not going to say I would be fine with that, but maybe I would be.
All right, update the fine counter. Well, not a fine, but a suspension. Another one to talk about here. Remember when Shawn Lemon retired, guys? Mm-hmm. And then remember when Shawn Lemon got indefinitely suspended from the CFL like a week after retiring for supposedly gambling on his own games? Mm-hmm. And then remember when Shawn Lemon showed up at training camp with the Montreal Alouettes this week?
Mm-hmm.
Well, welcome to the CFL, where the suspensions are made up and the what do you call? The rest don't matter. The retirements don't matter.
You planned that. You didn't mess up a name, but you planned that quote for so long pre-show, and you botched it.
I know.
What was it? The retirements are made up and the suspensions don't matter because, Shawn Lemon is still suspended by the CFL, supposedly retired, although maybe it's questionable now whether he actually officially filed the retirement papers. And was he actually trying to retire, or was it to just try to get out of some legal, or not legal, but CFL trouble here? And all of a sudden, he's now planning to appeal his gambling suspension, and he's back at training camp with the Montreal Alouettes. Let's go back to you, Trey. I know you've had some adamant thoughts on the whole gambling on yourself, on your own game situation here. What do you think about the return of Shawn Lemon?
I don't know, man. Because again, if there wasn't the Chad Kelly thing, I would be a little bit more pissed off, but then everyone's like, well, if you're pissed off about Lemon, you should be pissed. And I'm like, I guess it's pissed off about both, but I don't know. I'm very maybe it's the horse racing background. Maybe it's because how many races I've watched that are clearly fixed, and I've lost enough money on things that are clearly fixed. And in horse racing, you are completely allowed to bet pretty much whatever you. Well, maybe you're probably not allowed to bet on other horses, but it's not monitored like these leagues are. I just have zero tolerance for it, and I just don't think I don't care if it was one game. I don't care if it was every game. You know what I mean? You're never going to convince me that Ohtani didn't know. You're never going to convince me of that. And we're going to go to another league. You're never going to convince me that Pete Rose didn't know or whatever he did. You know what I mean? You're never going to convince me of any of those things. But I'm all for second chance. If he literally just said, I effed up, again, did he give a big apology? I don't remember seeing that. No, that's what I mean. So again, is he in legal trouble and he can't say anything? But then again, if he's in legal trouble, I don't think there's a law against it right now, to bet on yourself. It's just league mandated. So I don't know. I hate it. And again, the on-field stuff bugs me in a different way, because when it's the off-field stuff, it's kind of the artist versus the art, right? Kanye is stupid, but his music's kind of good. You know what I mean? Like it's the art versus the artist. So I kind of try to give sports that to some degree. So with Kelly, it's like, he's a good football player. He's just a shit person. Lemon, it's kind of on field a little more because you kind of start questioning some things. And like my big thing was, why did he bet that game? If he only did one, that's almost just as fishy as doing it every game. Because if you just said I'm doing every game, like I said, I can handle that if it's every game, or if I think they have to make it public knowledge if you bet on yourself. Because like I said, I want to know why Lemon did this game. And why did Lemon not do the week before? That's kind of things I'd start questioning. And that's the same thing I ask horse owners. Why are you betting on your horse this week, but you weren't really talking to me about him last week? There's little things like that you notice, but that's a barn of 50 people compared to, let's say, 5 million Canadians bet on CFL. Is that I sound like a very, I don't know, maybe less, but still, I would be kind of mad about it. If I bet on that game, I'd be furious either way, because I'm just like, you don't know, and which we did, because we probably, was this 2021? No, that would have been before we came into the cast. Yeah, so I might have bet on it, not on the show.
All I look at it on this is, it's betting on yourself or betting against yourself or betting at any time when you're in the league that you're getting paid from is probably just stupid to me, in my opinion. And here's why. If all of a sudden you bet on yourself, oh, well, I need to win this game because I need to win this bet, maybe I might just go and see if I can take a chance with the old, performance enhancer and not get caught. Or maybe I go and I say something to one of the BC Lions stars to go and knock him off his game so that I can win this one. Or something else to modify or change the game a little bit. Not that, again, you might say something anyways, even if you weren't betting on the game, you might still say something and try to get a guy booted or do whatever you can. But you might have that extra motivation to do some of that stuff. And that's why I just hate that kind of thing. And players talk to players on all teams, right? It's a 9-team league. It's not like you got 32 teams and you don't talk to half the players or nothing. Everybody talks to everybody essentially in the league. So, and especially a guy like Shawn Lemon, who's a starter in the league, it really doesn't work to have a guy betting anytime when you're in this kind of a league because it's too small. This is for fans to do, make sure that they can enjoy this. They got to make sure that the game and the integrity of the game is secure. I can see why this is a lifetime suspension to get the point across that, hey, we're not taking any of this lightly. And that, to me, I think is pretty good. To me, the CFL handled this real well. If this is Shawn Lemon going and saying, I'm trying to protect my integrity of my career, okay, I guess you can maybe appeal it, but you don't have to be on the field to prove that. You can just appeal it. I don't know. It's real sketchy looking.
I almost feel like it's going to sound stupid at first, but I bet long term the CFL could lose more revenue dollars on the Lemon thing than the Kelly. Because like I said, maybe right now sponsorship might be get Kelly out of there. But in a couple of years, if Lemon and another guy, that's when the federal government might start looking into it. That's what happened in the UFC. Fighters could bet on themselves. Trainers could bet on themselves. And people started thinking that same too, because you could do prop bets in that where knockout in the second, submit with this in the third, right? And that start again, like Adam said, maybe someone like that's why you shouldn't do props, because if a quarterback puts the over on passing yards, well, he might be up 20 points and he starts throwing it, and the next thing you know, there's 3 interceptions and the game's over or whatever, right? So, and then the UFC's lost credibility. That there's province, I think Ontario literally banned UFC betting for a while because of the issues. And if we start getting, and don't tell me the NBA is not worried about that with the Toronto guy. That's why 2 guys from MLSE are in trouble right now. That's a shocker. But you know what I mean? And again, maybe today there might be sponsorship that says get Kelly out of there. But like I said, when Kelly's gone, the sponsors will be fine. But when there's betting, that will always linger, because we still talk about the NBA refs that bet on games they officiated. We still talk about Pete Rose. We still talk about the Chicago Black Sox. The only team actually known of point shaving in sports history. You know what I mean? Like, we know about these things, and we have in horse racing. Like, don't tell me, like, we talk about Bob Baffert, the known cheater. He's talked about every goddamn day on my Twitter right now. Like, the cheaters and those with the gambling get so you can't do it.
And that's why the NFL really doesn't like this whole script thing, or that they're considered like a script, because everybody's sitting there and saying, like, their better partners are all sitting there and saying, if this looks like it's scripted, well, this isn't good for betting.
Well, the NFL likes it, though. Did you see the commercial they put out this year?
They're trying to make it lighthearted of it, but in the back end, I'm sure they're nervous about that.
Yeah, maybe a little bit.
Also, WWE was trying to get a license to put gambling because apparently nobody's supposed to know who wins, even though it's scripted, right? And especially when the WWE and the UFC merged, they started doing that, and I'm like, because it's entertainment. But the NFL's linked as entertainment too, right? So it starts, the betting just, like I said, I've seen too many drivers pull up on their horse, man. I've seen too much of it, and it killed my sport. I don't want it to kill. These leagues got into bed so quick with the betting. And I understand the people's points. Where I see this once in a while where it's like, oh, every other commercial's gambling. It's on their jerseys. It's this and that. And gambling can be an addiction, no different than smoking and alcohol. I get that. Trust me, I get that. I got to put limits on my betting accounts, man. But so I understand that. But again, the leagues are going to be like, we're going to lose this. Because again, if we count Shawn Lemon and the basketball, like, a guy's name's escaping me from the Raptors, that's 2 in Canada within the last 3 or 4 months.
Shane Pinto from the Ottawa Senators as well.
Right. That's what I mean. That's 3 in Canada within, a year? You know what I mean? Like, that. Those are going to start adding up, and the government's here for something, aren't they? To regulate things like this.
And if you're itching to bet, like if you're a CFL player itching to bet on sports, there are 100 different leagues out there that you can play. You go bet on Finnish hockey or something, or Swedish hockey.
I will take Shawn Lemon to the track with me, man. We'll have a blast.
Yeah. Oh, I want that as a bonus episode of the podcast. There we go. Do you think there's any?
Is this the track at Steinbach trade?
There is one there, isn't there? Yeah.
As far as I know, there is.
The Stampede, where the Stampede is. We did hold racing there actually before.
Or that, or just take them to Miami.
I'll go to Miami. Yeah.
Do you think there's any chance that Lemon's back at training camp because he placed a futures bet on the Alouettes to win the Grey Cup again this year and saw the competition at rookie camp and realized he needed to step in and go take care of it himself? I kid. Speaking of training camp, training camps are underway, and it's that time of year where we always see some interesting movement, and guys who sign big contracts in the offseason suddenly are being let go because there is no definitive cap. You can go over the cap before the season, during the offseason. I mean, you can go over the cap during the season. And sometimes things don't work out as we expected. A couple notable big cuts to talk about here. Terry Godwin, wide receiver, the Hamilton Tiger Cats, just signed an extension with them this offseason at 800 yards and like 5 touchdowns last year. I'd probably peg him as a top 15 receiver in the CFL. Maybe I had him considered. I didn't quite, have him in my top 10 this year, but he was in the range I was considering. And then Jalen Edwards-Cooper, defensive back, signed a huge contract with the Riders, was a real good shutdown defensive back with the Lions the last couple of years, and gets cut by the Riders there. Let's start with Godwin, because supposedly it's just that they want taller receivers. I don't understand this. As somebody from Winnipeg who's unfortunately watched Logan Stanley play hockey for the past number of years and seen, a team value height over skill. No offense to him. I don't know how I say that without offense.
Offense to him.
Yeah. But and football's different, obviously. Height does matter more in football, but to me, you take the guy whose talent is there, no?
Well, exactly, because, look at what's going into the Hall of Fame this year. Weston Dressler, I don't think he's very tall that I know of. S.J. Green, okay, he's a little bit more
S.J. Green was pretty tall, right?
Yeah, he's fairly tall. But Chad Owens?
Oh, all right.
I don't know, did Terry Godwin all of a sudden shrink after he signed the contract?
How tall is he?
I think he's 6 foot, isn't he?
Let me look it up.
Yeah, okay. But like I say, all of a sudden he's shorter? What's the deal with this, Hamilton? There's something else besides just the tall. You knew what height he was, I think, last year. He was on your team. You should have seen it. And you signed him to another contract knowing that he's X tall. And all of a sudden, I'm taller receivers.
He's 5'11", by the way, and actually reporting it as 5'11". He didn't round it up to 6 feet. The difference there might be, though, that Scott Milanovic is taking over full-time this year, right? Whereas it's coming in last year, he had a reduced role there. And I've seen a lot of talk all over social media. I know FM fan from the Discord community has been talking about it a lot there as well. Of Milanovic typically likes to have kind of his one or two smaller receivers in the slot, and then likes to go for the height for his wideouts. And Godwin was lining up at left wideout, and I guess that means he's doesn't fit what they're looking for this year. I don't agree with it, especially on a team that I think doesn't have a ton of wide receiver depth, but I guess we'll see. If I'm being honest, do they even need the wide receiver depth if they don't have the quarterback to throw the ball to them? But Terry Godwin out in Hamilton. Any thoughts from you guys on where you think would be a good fit for a guy who had 864 yards and 6 touchdowns last year? Trey?
Does Ottawa need someone else, maybe? Not Winnipeg, no. Screw the cap, right, at this point, so maybe Winnipeg. But no, I think I like Ottawa, Montreal. They can't hurt from it too, right? I'm torn. I get both ways. I get both sides where you want. It depends on what your team wants. We say like that in the draft. You take the best player, or do you take the guy that fits the system best, right? It's he doesn't fit the new system, but there might be there's at least 4 or 5 other teams that will take him. I'm surprised if not by the time the show's done, right? So, Adam.
Yeah, no, I think probably you're dead right. I think Ottawa would be the best fit for him. Although they say that Martin's doing real well in Ottawa, and he is a tall running receiver.
And he didn't make his NFL tryout, so.
No, so he's in Ottawa. So, I don't know. Maybe Ottawa doesn't need anybody. Maybe he just becomes a free agent and moves on back to the UFL, or hard to say.
I think BC is a perfect fit for him. This is a team that lost Dominic Rhymes, moved on from Lucky Whitehead. Keon Hatcher is out for basically most of the season now. They're expecting big things. I heard talk Justin McInnes, who I did put in my top 10 wide receivers for this year, is looking fantastic in camp so far. So that's exciting. But I think there's some concerns right now over some of the receiver depth for the Lions, and I think Godwin would be a great fit in that outside role where Lucky Whitehead was playing the last couple of years. And if he could put these kind of numbers up with a mixture of Bo Levi Mitchell, Matt Schultz, and Taylor Powell, what kind of numbers could he put up if he has VA throwing him the ball this year? I wouldn't be surprised if he could hit a 1,000-yard season. So make it happen. I want to see him go over to the Lions on Terry Godwin. Quick thoughts from you, Adam, on Jalen Edwards-Cooper at defensive back?
Yeah, essentially what happened was he had a separated shoulder last year. It never really healed quite properly. So the Rough Riders said, you know what, we want to look at a few other defensive backs. And apparently they really got some good defensive backs in the backfield right now for the Rough Riders that are really competing for rookies, actually. So it sounds like the Riders said, you know what, if we need you, we'll come back and get you later. But in the meantime, if there is another opportunity for you somewhere else and you think you can go somewhere else, by all means. So they cut. What happened? They wanted to see some extra defensive backs, some new guys. And apparently there's some really good guys doing well. I think one guy who's Deontay Williams has come in. I think he was there last year already on the practice roster. He came in and really, really looked good. If it was Deontay Williams or a different, I know his last name's Williams. Looked real well. And of course, they still got Roland Mulligan back. They got Amari Henderson in there, and they got some other pieces. So I don't think the Riders are really worried about defensive back right at the moment, although I think that they still should be. I asked about safety the other day. It sounds like Jaden Dolkey will be taking that position. So maybe the Riders are good in defensive back. I just kind of was a little bit shocked when Edwards-Cooper was cut right away in the first day, and actually before even really training camp started. So, but injury issue, that's why they cut.
We got some more interesting injury news and air quotes retirement news out of Winnipeg. We'll actually come back to that later when we talk about the Bombers in our division previews. Let's get into that now, 45 minutes into the show. We in for the long haul here tonight, boys. West Division preview. We got 5 teams to talk about. Will we get it done before midnight? Let's find out. Adam, which team you want to talk about first?
Well, why don't we start out west, I guess. Talk about the BC Lions and what we've been hearing out there. It seems like, they got some good battles in running in wide receiver positions. And I heard not much else on the Lions, really, other than that they're in Kelowna. What have you guys heard about the Lions?
Well, BC, first of all, last year, second in the West Division, 12-6 record. They lose to the Bombers in the West Final after narrowly getting past Calgary, if I remember. I feel like Calgary came out and surprised them a little bit, actually, in that West semifinal. I could be misremembering.
Yeah, Bo was on there. That was Hamilton. But someone was looking like it was going to be a close game, yeah.
Yeah, I think Mayer came out through a couple dimes there in that one. But BC gets past them. They fall to Winnipeg yet again in that West Final for at least the second year in a row. I guess the biggest storyline is, can BC get over that hump this year, right? Because we keep putting them right there every single year the last couple of years. And, it was Nathan Rourke, and then Rourke goes off to the NFL, and then it's what are we going to expect from VA? And VA has that huge season last year. What are your guys' kind of expectations for him coming into this year, Trey?
I think it's a big year for him. He's north of 30 now, and that's kind of when I'm not saying quarterbacks die in their early 30s, but that's when you could start seeing, it's either progression or Tom Brady. You kind of get one or the other, right? You're kind of seeing where you're going. I think big year for him. He had his career high passing yards last year, over 4,700, man. Like, I was looking into that kind of today, and 31 touchdowns. A lot of interceptions, because wasn't last year a 6 interception game or whatever it was, 5, 6 one game. But if you took that away, that's 13. So I think I have pretty high hopes for him in this team. Now, they've lost some key parts, but I think BC is one of those teams that will get through. Adam?
Yeah, I think BC right now with Vernon Adams especially, I think there's lots of pressure on BC, obviously. It's Grey Cup or bust for them. They're in a Grey Cup year. They host the Grey Cup this year. It's all in for BC, you would think. So you're right, Ryan, when you were saying earlier about Terry Godwin possibly going there. If they need a receiver, they'll get one this year. They're not going to hesitate to try to make sure that Vernon Adams has all the pieces that he needs. I really want to see more of Vernon Adams, the arm, versus Vernon Adams, the leg. Earlier in his career, he was all about kind of beating guys with his legs, making some plays happen on the fly. I'd like to see him sit in the pocket more and actually make more throws. And he did good with that last year. And I think that's starting to be the new development for Vernon Adams. Their defense is going to be a little bit different this year, though, and that's going to be interesting. And we'll talk a little bit about that later on. But, yeah, I think VA, if he's got the pieces to make the passes, his offensive line looks good in front of him. You still have a little bit of questions. You're right, though, Ryan, about the receiving core.
Yeah, and if VA struggles, it's a good thing they've got 2024 CFL All-Star Jake Dolegala behind him. Call back to last week's episode where he's got bonuses for that in his contract. Yeah, I'm excited to see what VA can do. I have him listed as my number one quarterback for this season. I think he's going to rock it once again. I'm just so happy to see him being in an opportunity where he gets a chance to do so, because his career for so long was, okay, now you're going to get a shot. Just kidding. We're going to bring somebody else in to start instead of you. It would pain me actually so much as I want to see Nathan Rourke return to the CFL, if he returned, went back to BC, and VA just got discarded to the wayside after what he has done the past couple of years. But, we talked about some of those missing pieces at receiver, but he's got some gems there on that offense. Like Alexander Hollins, I think, is going to have a massive year this year. He finished with a really strong season last year. Justin McInnes, even Javon Catoy, big years potentially from them. Running backs, interesting to me what split we're going to see between Taquan Mizell and William Stanback. This was a team that coming into last year was a big question mark at running back. We had no idea what they were going to do, because they went off the board and tried somebody we'd never heard of in the CFL before. Mizell didn't do too bad. He had a solid season. I want to say something like 700 yards last year, but now they bring in Stanback. How much juice does he have left in the tank, so to say, there, and play into that? I feel like when on our free agency show, I was initially a little bit down on the Lions at that point in time, based off of kind of some of the pieces they were losing. I mean, losing Matthew Betts on that defensive line is massive loss to have him go off to the NFL. But they brought some pieces back in to help with that as well. Pete Robertson from the Riders, I believe, is now in BC on that defensive line. And last week, 2 weeks ago, Christian Covington, who was in the NFL for a little while there, kind of futures pick for the Lions, paying off and getting him back to the CFL. So, they've replaced their pieces in different ways. I think they've got one of the best linebacker cores in the CFL, which they were able to retain with Bo Combo, Ben Hladek, Josh Woods, and the crew there. I think this is still a pretty good Lions team overall.
Yeah, when I was mentioning there both the defensive line on our Discord page the other day, I went and I said once they got Christian Covington in there, and he's a veteran NFL player. He's played for a few teams in the NFL. I said, once they got him in there, I said, who needs defensive backs when you're going to smoke the quarterback every time? And I think that they will get a lot of sacks this year in BC. If Nathan Cherry's healthy as well, I think he's still in that mix with the Lions. That's going to be a very dangerous defense, and I think they're going to make some noise. They're young. They're pretty they still got lots of experience in there. And, I can't see why the defense would ever give them an issue in BC. And I think this year they're going to probably give that team that they've always had a little bit of a challenge with, the old Winnipeg Blue Bombers, probably a little bit of a run for the money, especially with them, getting another year older. So interesting to see what happens. But I think I like the defense in BC for sure.
I was just looking at their defensive backfield here too. Like, this looks pretty deadly. I know TJ Lee. I feel like TJ Lee's injured for a while as well. I thought I had read that. I feel like that's a constant mystery on this podcast, where I think he's out for a long time, but you guys seem to question it, and then we have to look it up. But I'm pretty sure he is. But you've got Gary Peters, Marcus Sales. They brought in Deontay Evans into that crew as well. Probably missing some other good names. Emmanuel Rugamba was had a pretty good year with 58 tackles last year. This is a solid looking team on the defensive side of the ball. I wonder what kind of defense we'll actually see from them this year. Because remember last year they started off on a record breaking pace when they shut the Elks out twice. early on in the season, and then as the season went along, they couldn't get any pressure on the quarterback, any sacks, anything for a little while, and then Betts did what he did. But I don't know. Seems like a pretty solid BC Lions team here to me. Any other thoughts on the Lions here from you, Trey? And if not, and then also, what are we looking at for the win totals?
Well, yeah, I was having a tough time on the Google machine finding any official ones, so we dug into the Trey Sportsbook, brought to you by the TCU. We want to experience everything Trey. That's the TCU, the only place you can do it. So I use my algorithms to come up with my own over-unders for all 9 teams, but we'll just do the 5 West today. BC, I got them at 11.5. That's what my crystal balls, that's the magic number. It was given 11.5 wins. Over-under, Ryan.
I think I gotta go. The West Division is going to be tough. I think I'm going to go over. What they have last year? They had 12.
Back 12 years. Yep.
They had back 12. So that's tricky because some of these teams should get better and it's going to balance out a little bit. But is Winnipeg going to win 14? I don't know. I mean, we'll talk about that later on as well. I'm going to go over on the Lions. I'm high on them right now. A team with that offense, I'm really liking what I see from their defense here. I think I'm going to go over here for the Lions.
I'll keep track of this, and maybe if I remember, we'll talk about it in October.
Sounds good.
Adam, what do you got, buddy?
Yeah, I know. I'm also just like Ryan. I'm pretty high on, especially that defense on BC's. You were wondering about TJ Lee. Yes, he is on the 6-game injured list right now. So Ryan is correct. Even with, though, I think they got enough depth and everything to help him out. BA still got a lot of targets and a lot of things to look at. And if Justin McInnes is having the camp that they say he's having, yeah, give me 12. Give me at least 12. So I'll go on the over.
How about you, Trey?
I think they're going to be a good team. I just think the West is going to be the West, and a good team might only be 11-7 or 10-8 kind of thing. So I'm actually going to go under for the BC line, but they're still going to be good. They're still going to potentially host a playoff game. I think that's kind of the year the West is going to be when you play a lot of games against your division. It's going to be that way.
I didn't do my usual dissection of the schedule that I do every year, but just pulling it up quickly here. Looks like the Lions start against the Argos there in week 1. Then they host the Stamps, visit the Bombers, host the Elks, visit the Ticats, and then host the Riders. So a little bit of back and forth, seemingly. Home game, away game to start the season. And you have to think, you play each team twice, I guess, in the new schedule. Not bad to get the first meeting with the Argos out of the way while they're still trying to iron things out with whoever's going to be at quarterback there for them for BC to start the season. Let's continue moving out eastward. I don't know which team is the next most Western team. We're going to go in the order I have my tabs here from this point forward, though. Let's move on to Edmonton and talk about the Elks, because I think the story we talk about with the Elks is a lot different than the story coming into the year for the BC Lions. Edmonton last year, so much hope coming into this year and into the year. I'm glad we don't have the clips to play back all of my bold predictions for Edmonton that fell flat last season as they started the year 0-8. Bench Taylor Cornelius, demoted Steve McAdoo, and Trey Ford comes in the second half of the season and claws them to a 4-10 record, 4-14 record, bottom in the West Division last season. It has to be better this year for Edmonton, guys, right? It has to. Adam?
They got hope over there. I mean, everybody's really thinking they're going to be doing something. I heard the other day Gurley Gittins Jr. saying this is the best wide receiver crew in the whole league. And I'm like, that's bold. I think they got a very good wide receiver core, by the way, when you got Dylan Mitchell and you've got Eugene Lewis and you've got a couple others in there. I think that is a very good wide receiving core. My concern with the Argonauts, they do have a guy that can throw them the ball finally. Kyle Bethel-Thompson can throw the ball. He's been known to throw the ball. He's good. They've got a good running back. They've got a good wide receiving core. Do they have the offensive line, though, to still hold up? I don't think so. My opinion is if they're going to flounder somewhere, Edmonton, this year, it's going to be in that offensive line. I don't think they've done much to improve it. And also, they've lost a little bit on the defensive line. Jake Seresna is not there anymore, and he was big for them the year before. So, I don't know. I think Edmonton's going to be better than they have been, that's for sure. But I'm still nervous about that offensive line. Trey?
No, I'm the exact same way. I think I just had it typed out here with back-to-back 4-win seasons I have here. I think they're going to be better than that. But again, like I said, the West, I think, is going to be the West because, we'll talk about it more, but BC, Winnipeg, Saskatchewan, I think are going to be a three-horse race, barring injuries or something crazy happening. And Edmonton might be that team sniffing the crossover at best, I think, but I think they'll be better than a 4-win team. I think Bethel-Thompson, it's not like, it's hard to wrap my head around. I keep thinking he was gone for a year, that he didn't do anything, but he still played football. I keep kind of forgetting that. So it's not like he took a whole year off and did nothing. He probably played a condensed schedule, right? They only played 10 games in that league. It's probably, he's probably going to come back fresh. He's only 35. He looks like he's 45 every time I see a picture of him. But I think the team will be fine as long as Chris Jones doesn't Jones it up, right? So, right.
I wanted to bring that up too. Do you think Chris Jones is really under hot seat right now? He's got to be at this point, right?
How many years does he have left in it? Did we ever fully figure out whether his contract was 4 years or 4 single-year contracts? And where are we at on how many years it's been here for Chris Jones? 2, 3?
This is year 3, I believe, of the 4 years. So
he's got to be on the hot seat soon, right? If this doesn't work out here, especially after, they got the hope from Trey Ford at the end of last season. He was exciting to watch. And if now they bring in Bethel-Thompson, who I feel like for a diehard fan is an exciting name. I don't know if for a casual fan, MBT is really that exciting of a name to bring in at quarterback for them, right? He's kind of been that underrated player for a lot of his career. Great player. But there was so much excitement at the end of last season. If they fall flat again, fans are getting frustrated. Fans have been selling their tickets and canceling their season tickets. How many more years of that can you take? And with Jones, you always say it's going to take a year or two for him to sort out his team. But if we're in year 3 and that's not going to happen this year, then I think he's got to be on the hot seat there. But I like you guys. I like what he's brought in. It was a down year last year. The injury didn't help for Eugene Lewis. Dylan Mitchell just disappeared after his strong rookie season. I can see a little bit of an argument for putting them as a top tier wide receiver core in the CFL for the Elks. And I like MBT at quarterback, big fan of his. I love Kevin Brown at running back, but yeah, they did not do very much with the offensive line. So I'll echo exactly what you guys have said there. Don't know what to make too much of their defense. I feel like, I look at the linebacker core there. For Edmonton, maybe there's a little bit of concern for me. These names aren't jumping out to me at a first glance necessarily like they were with BC. But Chris Jones is going to move these guys all over the place to find the ones that can perform the best for them there. So I'm expecting things to be a little bit better for Edmonton this year, but I'm forever going to be scarred by last season and be a little bit reserved in crowning them a kingpin of the West Division here.
Yeah, I can't see them being number 1, that's for sure. But kind of interesting you brought up linebackers. They drafted so darn many of them this year during the CFL draft. It'd be interesting to see how the number 1 pick, and I'm sure he's going to get an opportunity, Joel DeBlanco. See how he does actually in an Edmonton Elks jersey as well. So,
didn't he have a story like his grandparents' first date was at an Edmonton football game or something like that, and then now you're the first overall pick in the draft? Look how far we've come.
Also, if you look something really neat about their depth chart, they have a certain quarterback that Saskatchewan probably would have heard of. Jared, don't call me Seth Daggy, is actually on the roster for the Edmonton Elks.
All right, 13 wins.
Minus
what? One guy we didn't talk about that I think is actually going to be one of the biggest difference makers this year for Edmonton is Javon Leake, who is going to be returning kicks for them. And this is a team who, until late last season, and I think the final game when they got a return touchdown, hadn't had a return touchdown since Kendall Lawrence in 2015. I think it was. So that's been a place that's been desperately lacking for years. I'd say kicker as well. I mean, Dean Faithful did an okay job last year, but Boris Beatty comes in after he had a pretty solid year for Toronto. So more emphasis on the special teams here for the Elks this time around as well. What do we got? Any other thoughts here, Trey? And what do we got for the wins?
Yeah, I was thinking about who's that NFL guy? Is it the Swami? I should have a name like that for my predictions right here. I don't know, but Edmonton back-to-back 4-14 years, which my magical crystal ball of random number calculator gives me 5.5 over or under. We'll go with Adam this time.
I think this one I could probably confidently say I think they'll be over that, namely because they've got McCall Bethel Thompson in there. He's a steady quarterback. They've got all the pieces except for that offensive line. If somehow that offensive line can hold up just enough, they should get a couple more wins than 5.5. I think maybe they're more like a 7-win team, a 6-win team, somewhere there, 6-7. I think, and in the West, you know what? That could be enough for a playoff spot. So it sounds crazy, but I think they have an opportunity for a crossover or even being in third place in the West. So depends how it works. That would be probably more of an 8-win team or 9-win team. But they definitely, like I say, they were close last year in quite a few games. So I'll go with the over. Right?
The range for me for the Elks, it's a pretty big range. I could see them peaking at 10, 11 wins, and I could see them going as low as 6. But I also see them going over this 5.5. Things got to turn around. I mean, they got 4 last year despite the disastrous start. Seems like things are gelling. They've got some proven guys into camp there now that I think are going to make a difference. So give me the Elks over.
Yeah, I agree with both of you guys. Actually, my other crystal ball, because I have one that predicts the over under, and then I have the one that predicts what I think. And it's like that 8 ball, right? It's like shake it. What does it say? It says please try again later. So I throw it against the wall, but it says over.
Remind me when we get a chance, and we're going to be doing these for games, that we get a coin and we flip it and see how accurate the coin is.
Yeah, there we go. That's more accurate than me when picking Argos games. That's for sure. Can we also figure out who Shawn Lemon's betting on in each game as well, and include that in the mix?
Oh, that'd be hilarious. Make a phone call. Hey, Shawn, what are you betting on? What would you bet on if it was up to you on these games?
Yeah, if you'd like to bet on the CFL, boy, do we have an opportunity for you. Elks scheduled to start the season, by the way, hosting the Riders, and then hosting Montreal the week after, then a 2-game road trip to Toronto and BC, followed by a home-and-home with Ottawa. So a bit of variation in the start of the season here for the Elks. How long do you guys think it takes to get the first home win of the year for Edmonton? We'll play that game again this year. Do we know, are they doing that ticket sale where you get free tickets until they win at home, or is that done this time around?
I think it's done. I think they won last year, didn't they, against Ottawa or somebody?
I think so, yeah. So they host Saskatchewan, then Montreal, then Ottawa, then Hamilton, then BC. Where in there do you guys think they're getting their first home win of the year?
I think they might even beat Saskatchewan, to be honest with you. There's a lot of change in Riderville, so they might win it right off the bat and win their first one, right, the first game.
Yeah, I could see that one. Trey, any thoughts from you on when the Elks are going to win a home game here?
sorry, my internet is laggy. I don't know if it's affecting you guys or the show. But
we're doing pretty good
here. Oh, maybe it's just my end then that's completely useless. Dang it. I did, you know what? I had a part of my crystal ball. I actually picked the winner of every game. And I can't remember when I had Ottawa because I didn't save. That's why I went through it. So I could see at first home win for Edmonton is what we said.
Yeah.
Oh, geez. Saskatchewan, Montreal. Maybe Ottawa in July if they don't sneak one out between Montreal and Saskatchewan, I guess. That would be their third home game. So
maybe they'll call Taylor Cornelius back just for that week 1 against the Riders because we know how well he plays against Saskatchewan. I'm going to say
he doesn't play well. He just runs well against Saskatchewan, which he never does for anybody else.
I'll say week 1 against Saskatchewan or week 6 against Ottawa is the first home win here for the Elks. Let's move on to Calgary. Let's talk about the Stampeders here next. Go to the next Alberta team here as we truck along. This was an unusual season for the Stamps, where they finished 6-12 on the year and still made the playoffs somehow with a 6-12 record. You like to see that. Maybe you don't. But the Stamps really struggled last season, I think, are low on the totem pole for a lot of people coming into this year. Adam, let's go to you first. Any opening thoughts on the Stamps?
Pretty straightforward. I think they really need to get Jake Maier started early and often. If they don't, it's going to be a long, long year for the Calgary Stampeders. Yes, their receiving core is better. They've been healthy now. Their running backs are the same as they always are. But they lost another piece in offensive line this year in Scevrier. And I think that's a big piece to lose if you're the Calgary Stampeders. So if you don't have him and you are just short of players, not really short of players, but if you're short of offensive line, that doesn't help your quarterback that's already kind of sometimes a little bit throwing off the ball a little bit early or just can't make that right throw and really likes to throw short throws. So I think it's going to be a long year for the Stampeders, to be honest with you. Every time I bet, though, against the Stampeders, they end up winning the West. So I don't know. That's usually the way it ends. Trey, what do you think of the Stamps?
Well, if you're on their website, their freaking dog popped up on the screen. That scared the shit out of me. I was like, what is that? I thought I got hacked for a second. I thought that thing was creepy in real life. But I don't know. I have no high hopes for this team. I watch me be wrong, but I think their defense, is all right, but I have zero confidence in that offense. And it's not one of those. I don't think it's one of those teams that can win solely off the back of its defense. I think it needs to do some changes on offense. But yeah, kind of where I'm at, Ryan.
Yeah, one of the big problems Calgary had last season was they had so many injuries. Also, this dog popped up over top of the roster that I'm trying to scroll through here for the Stamps. I believe that's their mascot, I assume.
Ask Ralph. Yep, it's Ask Ralph.
Yeah, or somebody's random dog. Imagine just putting that in there. They had so many injuries last year, too. So I wonder how much of that affects things and if we do actually see a bit of a bounce back from Calgary. One of the biggest offseason additions for this team, or a couple of them really, are going to be the health factor of Malik Henry and Jalen Philpott hopefully being back this year for them at wide receiver. So, you look at this team and you've got Reggie Begelton, Malik Henry at receiver, Mark and Michelle, Jalen Philpott, all these young guys. Trey Odoms-Dukes had a good year last year. It's a pretty darn good receiver core, but can Jake Maier get them the ball? And can they get them in the ball, effectively to move the ball downfield? That was their biggest issue last year, is he was throwing 6-yard passes nonstop. So Reggie Begelton would have, 12 catches a game, but 70 yards off of those 12 catches, it seemed sometimes, where they really weren't able to get much going there. So I I think it's going to be a little better, but there are some question marks around Mayer, and that's why they brought Matt Schultz in. And I think Matt Schultz is going to be an interesting competition in camp. I've long time been a believer in his and wanting to see him get more of a shot. So I would kind of advocate for that. But Mayer looked good a couple of years ago when he first started out. So that's the most interesting battle for me would be between those two at the quarterback position for this team, probably more than any. I think there's a QB controversy going on in training camp.
Yeah, I think that you're right. There probably would be a 1A and 1B in the training camp in this one. The other spot that I really want to look at in Calgary is their defensive back. Jonathan Moxey is not coming back this year for the Stampeders. And they were already a team that let in probably one of the worst for long balls against, essentially. And I don't know if they've really improved that much. They did get Demario Houston out of Winnipeg, which will help him for interceptions. But if he doesn't get an interception, he could also get burned, and this could still be a bit of a year, a little bit of a trouble now for the Stampeders, I think, in defensive back. Thoughts anywhere on there?
I was more concerned a little bit with the defensive line, to be honest, because I feel like they lost some of their main guys on the D line last year. Isaac Adeyemi Berglund had 5 sacks. Derek Wigan had 4. They both went over to the Montreal Alouettes. Calgary's historically not a team that does much in free agency. This year they did a little more, not on the D line, but a couple nice additions on defense. Micah Tights at linebacker, and Demario Houston, the interception leader last year. But going back to what you said, just because Houston can pick the ball off, I don't think he helps that being beat deep, as we saw, a number of times here in Winnipeg, where Houston's that guy that can make the big play, but to give up the big play at the same time, right, Trey?
Yep. Yep. We don't have enough time for this show for this, right?
We're trying to bring up the whiteboard again.
It's right here. I just got my other work on it right now, so I have to erase it first.
Now, interestingly, Calgary, one of their big additions they were trying to make in the offseason was they were going to sign Jamal Morrow at running back to compete for that backup job with Peyton Logan, but then he failed the physical. Also, weren't they going to sign Ricky Walker from the Bombers on the D-line? And I think he ended up choosing to retire or go somewhere else. So it's like Calgary tried to make moves in the offseason, but half of them didn't pan out the way they were supposed to there. Big subtraction for them this year as well. No Kadeem Carey as he goes off to Toronto. So it's firmly Dedrick Mills' starting job at running back. Yeah, I kind of like to see that. I think Mills had, some spark to him when he got opportunities last year. So excited to see him kind of get that full-time role here. Calgary's one of those teams where, yeah, like Adam said, they always kind of surprise you a little bit here and there. That they lose everything in free agency. They bring in new guys once camp starts. You never hear them come week 1, and you know all about them by the end of the year for how good they are. So that's a big question for me. Will we see them return to the Calgary of old if they can stay healthy, or are they going through the dark ages here for the Stampeders? I don't know.
Everything has to come to an end. We thought about that on the Patriots, and that's kind of Calgary. It's kind of been close to that the last few years. So yeah, it's nice to see the good teams that never seem to fail once in a while.
Week 1 matchup for the Stamps, by the way. Bo Levi Mitchell and the Hamilton Tiger Cats making his first return to Calgary, I believe it is.
Well, he'll be on the sideline probably by then. Right? So,
I was going to say, notice they scheduled it for week 1 so that he'll actually be in the lineup. I hope he stays healthy, but I mean, Bo's looking brittle.
Do we have to put a question mark on that? I mean, he was seen in a boot the other day.
Apparently he's out of it. I think FM fans probably got pictures of it to prove to us. So
that's true. He is out of the boot, but the Ticats coming to town. Then Calgary goes to BC. Then they host Winnipeg, but they've got a bye in week 3, so an early season bye here for the Stamps. What what do we got for what does the Trey prediction mechanism here pull out for us?
We got, let me see here. 7.5 is the number here. Over under. I made you guys go first on the other one, so I'll actually go first this time. I am gonna. What does Joaquin Phoenix do in the Gladiator? It's boom under. I'm gonna take under 7.5. I think if you can go golfing in November, that's what the Stampeders are going to be doing. Ice fishing, I guess, in November. So yeah, take the under. Adam?
I would love to see how many people use that as an analogy now. Go ice fishing, or they're gone ice fishing. That would be the most Canadian thing ever. In the words of Gladiator, are you not entertained? Well, unless I'm the Go Stamps Go podcaster Ryan Ballantyne, I'm going to go 18-0, which even I don't know if he could this year, honestly. You know what? I think it's 5 wins. I don't like Hamilton. They should beat. Other than that, I don't know where they're going to get their wins from. Saskatchewan's decent again. Edmonton looks good. BC, Winnipeg are going to compete for the top. Over on the other side, Toronto's really good. Ottawa, hard to say. Like I said, you never know until they see them win a few games here. But and Montreal's the champs from last year. So the only team I can really see them beating really is Calgary. Or beating Calgary.
Beating themselves.
They could beat themselves too, probably. But that might be Jake Maier's job. But no, I think it's only really the Ticats that I'd be concerned about for beating this or losing against the Stampeders. Otherwise, I'm not really scared of the Stamps this year. I'm going to go 5 wins. No, I'll go under.
I might be hallucinating, but I feel like we did our way too early predictions on the Free Agent Frenzy show. Did I pick the Stamps to go to the Grey Cup out west during that show? I think I might have. I feel like I might have picked them for like a bounce back this year due to the injuries and stuff in a crazy moment. So part of me is tempted to go over, but like I can't go over the win totals on everybody because somebody's going to have to lose games. And Calgary is probably one of those teams that right now at this point coming into the season, I think I feel least confident in their quarterback situation is a big part of it. And some of those question marks on defense. I'm going to go Calgary under. I could see a scenario where they do get to 7-8 wins on the season, but I do like Adam's number there of like a 5 or a 6 win season for the Stamps.
Since we're saying exact number, my crystal ball threw up the number 3 for wins in Calgary. Because I kind of agree. It's Hamilton and maybe a steal game against Edmonton and Labor Day kind of season, I think, for Calgary, right? You know, or whenever they host it around Labor Day, September this year. So I haven't, but you know, watch them go 15-3. I don't know. Maybe 3 was the losses. I don't know.
Your crystal ball got it backwards or something.
Yeah, battery's in wrong, man. I don't know. It's the positive to the negative, right, guys?
Yeah, that's how it works.
Red to black, yep.
Do
we have 2 more? Let's go to Saskatchewan, right?
Yeah, let's go to Saskatchewan.
Let's shit on the Riders now for 10 minutes.
I'll try to get through them real fast. Very much to talk about. Is there?
Yeah, arguably 2 of the teams that have the most to talk about that we're going to get to here yet. The Riders last year just missed the playoffs on a tiebreaker with the Stamps with a 6-12 record on the season for Saskatchewan. They didn't win on the field. They won at the bowling alley. And they had a lot of turnover this offseason. Craig Dickinson's out. Corey Mace's in as head coach. Big signings across the board for Saskatchewan. Very active in free agency. I'm sure Adam's going to run through a couple of them for us here. So I'll skip a list of them out myself. But this team made an effort this offseason to turn things around. So the question is, does it gel on the field? What do you got, Adam? What does the Riders do this offseason that's notable to you?
Well, I think the biggest thing was they finally updated their offensive line quite a bit. Like I said, Jamarcus Hardrick and Ryan Scavrier coming in for the Saskatchewan Rough Riders is a big, big deal. They, of course, made the big free agent splash with AJ Ouellette coming in. to replace Jamal Morrow. I think that was a big piece for them as well. And they're finally looking like they're maybe starting to get healthy, which is big things for the Rough Riders. And that's big on their offense, especially because most of their wide receiving cores for the last 2 years have been just getting pounded with injuries. Yes, Brady Lenius is still on the 6-game injured list or on the veteran questionable list. I don't know what. CFL has so many weird rules. Nobody's retired, I can tell you that much. But if you look at it, though, the Rough Riders have still got Sam Emilus back. They've still got lots of good receiving core in there. Keon Schaefer-Baker is now getting a full camp in. He's been looking good, I guess, in camp. You still got other guys in there that have really done really well, and now they're looking healthy. Even actually, I've heard a few times the new Duncan Bisbee actually looks pretty good in camp so far, which is kind of cool. The real competitions, though, for the Riders this offseason in training camp right now are the backup quarterback's position, which was the other one, left tackle position. They had 3 quick retirements there, which I don't think they were expecting for guys that should have been taking that left tackle position. So that'll be interesting to see what they do in there. And defensive back, they've been looking for a few new players in there for a few years now. They should have some that'll come in there as well. But the big thing that I think that they really needed was a change in attitude, and that's what everybody's been saying is change attitude, change in scenery. Corey Mace has brought in a thing of discipline first. He was making the teams run after one guy went and had an arguing match, and then somebody decided to throw a punch in one of the lines, and everybody had to go and do laps. So, Corey Mace is not tolerating any of the BS, essentially, this year. But so far, from what I've heard in camps, everybody's been excited about it. The backup quarterback position right now, Shea Patterson looks like actually the guy that might end up taking that. He's had a really good camp. Last year was on the PR. What else have I heard interesting about camp so far for the Riders? Overall, though, I think there's a new focus, a new energy, and definitely looking at focus about discipline and things that has been an issue for the Riders for a few years now. So it'll be very interesting. There's a lot of green Kool-Aid being drunk in Saskatchewan right now. Trey?
Oh, I agree. Without getting too into it, from my crystal ball numbers, I have Saskatchewan being one of the more improved teams standing-wise in the league this year, and I think Green. You were kind of saying you don't really fear Calgary. That's kind of why I felt against Saskatchewan the last couple of years, but they're going to be in my nightmares. I think starting on Monday a little bit more. I want to see what Ouellette does. Like I said, I think the change of scenery, and God, how bad the locker room must be in Toronto now. He's probably just like thanking God he went to Saskatchewan and he probably lives on a farm just outside of Regina, knowing him, how he, and that's probably the life for him. I think Hardrick, again, his time unfortunately ran out in Winnipeg. He's a proud guy. He's probably going to come out and pancake every defensive lineman on Monday, right? He's going to try to knock everybody over on the Blue Bombers, and I think he'll take that in. I really like Saskatchewan this year, and especially as long as Harris stays healthy. I'm not as confident in these. It's always scary. You never know what you're going to get with these young guys. Fine is probably not fine, and then the other two guys, you never know what you're going to get, right? It's rolling the dice. They could be the next. Again, Zach Collaros and Bo Levi were the unproven rookies at one time, right? And they had to go in there. But you never know if you got the next Zach Collaros on your third stringer, right? And I guess Saskatchewan might find that out if Harris goes down. Do you think Harris is going to last all year, Adam? How do you think? He's going to miss a few games or what?
I think he'll miss 3 games eventually, somewhere along the lines. He's going to get one bad hit. He'll be out for that game and then probably one more, and then a third one where he comes in later on in it, maybe. Something like that. I don't think he's going to be out for a long time. This guy really takes care of himself. They said he follows the old Tom Brady style of meal planning and everything else, so he should be healthy. He should be ready to go. They said he hasn't had a great training camp, but again, he knows number one, so he's probably not pushing himself real hard at training camp, just not to re-aggravate anything in that Achilles or what he got injured on last year. I guess was it Achilles or knee? I can't remember which one it was.
Yeah.
It's bad. I know that.
I thought it was the knee, but I could be wrong on that one.
On a side note, also, would it suck to be the defense of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers? First, you got to deal with Milt Stegall in rookie camp. Now you have to deal with an annoyed Jamarcus Hardrick. I don't know. I don't want to be the Winnipeg Blue Bombers defense.
I almost want Stanley Bryant or Hardrick, one of the two, to play D line for one play so they can line up against each other. That's all I want to see in Banjo Bowl or Labor Day or something.
That'd be great. Or
that's how we get the coin toss. Like let them sumo wrestle at midfield. And whoever pushes them off the logo first, kind of thing.
Yes.
That would be great.
Somebody needs to green light.
We all know they've done it in the locker room before. You know that, so it's just whatever.
I love it.
In Winnipeg, though. I mean, it can't be in Saskatchewan. I've got to be in Winnipeg doing that.
It could be in either. Let's be real. I think I'm a little more reserved.
The loser has to buy the winner the rum hut stuff. Like
After that, or we put them on the border. Whoever pushes the other one across.
That's how we do things in the prairies. I think I'm a little more reserved than you guys are on the Riders for a couple of reasons. I like the moves they made this offseason. I really like everything I've seen from what Corey Mason, how he's been handling the team and what he's been saying so far. So I think this team's going to be improved. But I'm always a little bit reserved about this. Fantastic coordinator moves into being a head coach, and does that work out like we expected? Didn't we just go through this a couple of years ago with Devon Claybrooks going over to the BC Lions? Same thing, a guy from the Calgary system. Everybody thought he was going to be fantastic, and it didn't work out there. BC didn't have the team chemistry despite loading up in the offseason. I kind of see, a similar scenario potentially here, as high as I am on what he's said so far. And then the other is the Trevor Harris factor. Big injuries. He's getting up there in age already. How old is Trevor Harris? I've got the list here. 37. So, Harris to me has always been that up and down guy. He can have fantastic games. He can have, a string of terrible games in a row. How does this injury affect him? I'm not sold on the backup quarterback situation, even though they do have USFL first overall pick legend Shea Patterson, who could forget. So I'm not as sold there, but I like these pieces they brought in. I love Jameer Thurman at linebacker that they brought him in there. I love the AJ Ouellette. AJ Ouellette, for nothing more than a marketing standpoint, is a home run addition for the Riders to just be able to market off of all that. Jamarcus Hardrick, Ryan Sevier, that's a huge help on the O-line. So the Riders have done good things, and they'll be an improved team. I'm just not sure I'm vaulting them necessarily up straight to the top yet. Also, I do find it funny we talk about this team having more offensive line depth, and we did that last year, and then half of them tore their Achilles in training camp, and then we did it again this year, and 5 of them are on the suspended list because they didn't show up to camp. So every year it seems the Riders are going to have that improved O-line, and every year something comes up at this time of year. So those are kind of my thoughts on the Riders. Let's pull up their schedule as well here. While Trey gets the crystal ball ready to go there. I'll say favorable start, presumably, here for the Riders to the season. They visit Edmonton in week 1. Then they have a home-and-home with the Ticats after that, followed by a home game against the Argos in week 5, maybe straight after a bye. So, I mean, those first 3 games look like pretty winnable games, even if they're, last year's Riders, I would say. And then they get a bye week there early. So, a strong start to the season here potentially for Saskatchewan as they try to gel, and I think that's what they're going to need. Let's hit the crystal ball.
It's spitting out 8.5 is the game's over under here. Adam, let's stick with you in your home neck of the woods.
Yeah, I don't know. You know what? There's lots of green Kool-Aid being served, and people are seeming to drink it in bulk. I'm not a big fan of green Kool-Aid this year yet. I think I'm going to go with 9 games. I think they'll go over, but I don't know. It's going to take time to gel in Saskatchewan. Honestly, I don't see that first win against Edmonton. Just because Edmonton, I think, is more of a veteran team, and you know what, they may not make as many errors in the offensive line because most of it's still together. I hope that the Riders can pull off and go hard, and I really hope they're a 15-win team. I don't think they are. I'm thinking more 9 wins this year. Go 9-9. They'll make the playoffs. I don't know if they'll host this year. I think they'll be playing Winnipeg in the first round and go from there.
Right.
Yeah, I've got and I have no idea if any of my math from all these teams even adds up to a possible number of wins for all of them combined. But I will give them a little bit of the benefit of a doubt here. I'm not going to put them tops at number 1, but I will say they get in that 9 or 10 win range. I got them at 10 here on my list right now. I think this is going to be an improved football team. And I think having that, air quotes, easier schedule to start the season is going to be super helpful for a team that I think will be more of a force to be reckoned with later on in the year.
Yeah, we're gonna all go over, but I'm gonna spice it up a little bit. So they went 6-12 in both of their last 2 seasons. I'm gonna say they win more games this year than those 2 years combined, and could easily be first in the West. And Adam's gonna have to get me a ticket for West Finals in Regina.
Did they serve the green Kool-Aid out there too? Or
Man, green. If it's strawberry kiwi, man, I'll drink that all day, man. I love
my strawberry watermelon, no Saskatchewan.
I'm high on them, and they are my betting choice to win the Grey Cup for decent value, great additions. Like we just talked about, that easy part of the schedule was the first 4 or 5 games. I could see them being 4-5-0 after that. Like, it's not crazy to think that with the lineup they have. They should stomp over Hamilton. Edmonton could be a close game. Was it in Saskatchewan, right? Toronto coming to town, you said? Or was it in Toronto?
I think that was in Toronto.
It was hosting Toronto in week 5.
Don't tell me Ouellette's not going to want to run for 1,000 yards over them in Saskatchewan. You know what I mean? So, like I said, if they're not 4-0 or 4-1 in their first few games, I'd be like, okay, more with you guys, but I could see them. Oh yeah. And then heck, they could be one of those years they're like 11-1 playing the Bombers in Labor Day. And I wouldn't be shocked. Yeah. And we played 3 times this year, and I'm a little nervous about that. I'm going to be honest. I was going through the schedule, and I could see scenarios where Winnipeg does not win that series. And if it is both teams are at 10-8 or 11-7, that's a big series, right? So,
yeah, for sure. Let's move on to the final team here, which is Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Interesting team to talk about. They lost a lot of pieces this offseason. We thought they'd lose their biggest ones. They managed to retain the biggest ones: Brady Oliveira, Dalton Schoen. Nobody thought they were going to be able to bring back both. Somehow they do, which is huge for them. Also on the re-signed list, I believe they did bring back Willie Jefferson for another year. A couple big guys on the offensive line. Stanley Bryant comes back at age 37. Pat Neufeld comes back at age 35, but then all of a sudden was placed on the retired list this week. Kind of quietly. What's going on there, guys? Did Pat Neufeld actually retire in training camp, you think? Or is this a Shawn Lemon style retirement?
From my sources from Winnipeg, because, Mike would like that. My sources told me that he's not retired by any stretch of the imagination. He's injured right now. He's got a small injury he's dealing with. Probably not enough maybe to go on a 6 game. But enough to go on the retired list. No, honestly, I think it's just the thing so they could bring in some young guys to go and see what they got behind Patrick Neufeld and Jamarcus Hardrick and all that not there anymore.
Nobody tell the Vegas Golden Knights this is a viable strategy to put guys on the retired list.
I'm going to start calling Winnipeg the Winnipeg Golden Knights if they keep doing this.
Other major pieces they brought back: Brandon Alexander, Deatrick Nichols at defensive back, 2 huge re-additions there for them, but they lost a lot of pieces. Also, Chris Streveler brought in, I guess I didn't mention that one, was with the big one at quarterback. Other big names they added, that was really kind of it that I can think of. They lost Dakota Prukop. They lost Brendan O'Leary Orange, Rashid Bailey at wide receiver. Jamarcus Hardrick goes off to Saskatchewan on the offensive line. D-line, Jackson Jeffcoat retires. Theodric Hansen goes off to Toronto. Malik Clemens, Jesse Briggs, a couple of linebackers there gone. Defensive back Mario Houston led the league in interceptions last year. Winston Rose, I think, was still a free agent that never signed anywhere. Jeff Gray, another name I mentioned on the O-line, and their kick returner, Janarian Grant, also is not signed by anybody at this point, which is a little bit crazy there. And alongside that Patrick Neufeld retirement news, also some injury news. Adam Bighill's starting the season on the 6-game injured list, supposedly. That's a pretty big one at the linebacker position there. So we'll go to you here first, Trey, because I know you come into the year every year and claim this is going to be the year that the Bombers have their downfall. And I'm guessing it's much the same again this year, isn't it?
I definitely think they're going to be a step back, and I think I don't have sources other than telling me anything, but I have a feeling the Big Hill thing. What did I see? The max he has to sit out is week 1, and then he can be taken off. I feel like that's a cap circumvention thing too. You know what I mean? He's never healthy 100% throughout the year. So would you rather him play week 18 when you need a win, or would you rather him play week 1? Against, you know what I mean? So I think it's kind of, again, same thing. Let younger guys be in training camp, let younger guys get some time. Heck, there might even be younger guys get game 1 now because of this. And, you could still, and then you're going to get Adam Bighill week 3, 4, 5, and he should be all set. We saw how good he gets near the end of the year, right? When he's jumping over piles, knocking people out at the 1-yard line, right? So I'm not too worried about the injuries from that standpoint. I'm worried about a lot of the things they've lost. I'm really worried about that offensive line. Regardless if it's real or not, Neufeld being injured for a while could be concerning. Losing Hardrick's concerning. Losing Gray's concerning. We got great. We got Shawn and Oliveira back, but if no one's blocking for Oliveira and no one's blocking for Collaros to get the ball to Shawn, it doesn't really make much difference. But I think Winnipeg will still be competitive. I could still see them make the playoffs, but I don't think they're going 15-3 or 14-4 like they have in the last couple of years. Ryan, you're the other Bomber fan. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of pieces that we talked about that they lost. And every year, we go through this and I say, the Bombers are going to find those diamonds in the rough to replace them, similar to what Calgary did for many years. And usually you lose a piece of defensive back. Well, they'll find somebody else. So, the losses of guys like DeMario, Houston, I don't think they hurt that much. They'll find somebody to come in and replace them. But yeah, offensive line is going to take its hit here a little bit. Defensive line as well, with some of those guys missing, although I'm excited to see some of the other guys get more involved here, like Celeste and Haba on the defensive line looked really good when he filled in for Jackson Jeffcoat last year. Cam Lawson had 5 sacks last year and ended up on 3 Down Nation's list of the top 15 highest paid defensive linemen in the league. That shocked me when I looked at it, but to pay that much for a national, who's definitely, how many years does Jake Thomas have left? If you start one national on that D line, I think Lawson's going to kind of move a bit more so into that role if he isn't already rotating through there. I mean, the Zach Collaros, yes, he's 35, but I think last year, although he didn't win MOP, actually was his better year compared to the 2 years before that where he did win MOP. I thought we finally saw him let loose and start slinging it and putting together those 300-yard games, and he'll have his interceptions here and there that are going to drive us insane. But by and large, I think Collaros was on his game, and having Oliveira rush for 1,500 yards certainly helps in that category. Sucks to lose Rashid Bailey and his blocking ability. To me, I think that is a big loss at wide receiver, but you still got Lawler. You got him for the full year this year. You've got Dalton Schoen. Sounds like him and Collaros are connecting in camp just as much as usual. You still got Nick Dembski and Wolotarski, and you're going to find, another new name. Maybe it's the guy they drafted this year, Kevin Sklersius. their first draft pick. Maybe if somebody else kind of steps into that fifth receiver role there. So this team's still got a lot of the pieces. They took some hits. I think they're still going to be a really good football team, but definitely starting to get more concerns than I did in the past couple of years. And I think they're going to try to kind of just do what they can to keep patching this team together to get it through hosting the Grey Cup at home next year. And then after that, I think it's going to be rebuild time for the blue and gold. Adam, give us the perspective from across the prairie.
Yeah, we're looking at it as the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. And again, it's the green Kool-Aid effect, I think. Oh, the Bombers now don't have Hardrick, and they don't have this guy, and they don't have this guy, and Willie Jefferson's a year older, and Adam Bighill's already injured, and all that. And I guarantee there's a lot of energetic Rider fans that are chomping at the bit to try to get a hold of the Bombers. I don't know why. I still see a lot of good talent on that team. The wide receiving core is still very, very potent over in Winnipeg. Zach Collaros is still going to Zach Collaros. He still can throw balls when sometimes you just wonder how he got that pass off. The only question I got is, again, their offensive line isn't quite what it was. So we'll see what happens there. If that offensive line is going to be pivotal to this team and the defensive line, it's those two teams, the Riders and the Bombers. That's what gets them going, is the two lines. If the lines are good, they'll be good. But I think the Bombers are still pretty good around it, that they can probably improvise, not make it look like there's any problems on the team, even with having a little bit of a weaker offensive line. But that being said, I've seen Zach Collaros play with a weaker offensive line before, and that wasn't pretty, namely when he was in Saskatchewan for a few games. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with the Bombers. I think they are going to start slowly regressing. I don't think it's going to be an instant fall off the face of the earth like Trey's maybe thinking, but I think they're going to definitely be down a little bit this year. Are they going to be down enough to be out of the playoffs? No, I don't think so, but I think they're not going to be quite the same as they were. That being said, it'd be interesting to see what they have for rookies. I know that they do a good job of scouting and drafting over there with Danny Bannis and company leading the charge in that. I think they're a really good team that way, that they can draft real well, they can scout real well, and they can see talent when they need to. I mean, look at what they've done before. They've gotten Dalton Schoen out of the middle of nowhere. He was all of a sudden great. Brady Oliveira, Winnipeg kid, everybody thought, oh, they're sending the Winnipeg guy. He all of a sudden looked really good. They signed another running back this year. They drafted him. I think that guy's going to be pretty good. The Van Eyck eventually. I think he's really probably the next Brady Oliveira coming up again. So I don't know what they do in Winnipeg if they just build running backs for someone to do over there, but they seem to be very good at it. So I think that Winnipeg's going to be probably a good team. I don't think they'll be what they were, but we'll see what they brought in for talent and everything as well. They could be right in the conversation for first again.
Let's get into that conversation. I think here, fire up the crystal ball here, Trey.
It's telling me, let me see here, it's buffering. 12.5 over under. I'll go first since it's my Swiss cheese defense here. Again, I agree. I don't think it's going to, I'm getting less salty as the season gets closer. I don't think they're going to be terrible. I don't think they're going to miss the playoffs. I think it'll just be Calgary doing the ice fishing potentially in the West. So Winnipeg, give me under, though, 12.5, but they will still likely make the playoffs. My number I have is 10 is kind of where I gauge it, but we're under 12.5. Ryan, what do you think?
I've got them at 11. I think 12.5 is too high. I think they are going to take a bit of a step back, but I think they're still going to be an upper echelon team in that West division and be competitive as long as they've got those major pieces that they retained. So, I thought about, do I drop them down as low as 10? But I'll give them 11. 11 and 7 feels good.
I think with the Bombers, it'll be either 11-7 or 10-8. This team is still too good to go way out and under 500. I think that the defense, it's not run by Richie Hall anymore, but it's run by Richie Hall's protege. So I don't know. It'll be very similar to last year, I think, mostly on defensive wise. Offense, it'll be interesting. If they can keep these Collaros upright and keep them healthy, yeah, they're going to go 11-7, 10-8, somewhere there.
All right. Well, that's our team previews for each of the teams out west. We're going to quickly run through what are our standings predictions and playoff predictions all the way to which West team's going to the Grey Cup. We'll just go one and to save time instead of going back and forth. Each person can just list theirs off in a row. I'll start because I have mine listed here in front of me. I've got BC first in the West with around 12 wins. Winnipeg just behind at 11. Saskatchewan with 10 to get that third playoff spot there. Edmonton I got coming in around 8. Will that be worth a crossover or not? Stay tuned next week. And I've got Calgary coming in around 5. So 3 playoff teams for me are BC with the bye, the Bombers hosting the Riders. I've got Winnipeg beating them. Winnipeg seems to have their number, especially when it comes to playoff games lately. So I'll give it to the Bombers there, but I do have the Lions beating the Bombers this time around in the West final at home in BC. I like the Lions to go off to the Grey Cup out west this year. This has to be the year for them. I think it will be. Let's go to you here next, Adam.
Well, I think you're pretty much went and copied my list essentially because I've got the BC Lions going first. I think 12-6 sounds about right for them. I've got the Winnipeg Blue Bombers at 11-7. They're 10-8, somewhere around there. The Riders will be 9-9 is what my prediction is. I think maybe they could hit 10-8 depending on exactly how the first part of the season goes. Be very critical to see what happens with the Rough Riders early. If they don't win a lot of games early, they're going to have to do it in the back end of things. And I don't know. It gets tough to win games when you're chasing. So that's what I'm thinking on them. The Elks give me probably 7-11, maybe 8-10. I think they'll make a crossover, but I won't say that for sure. Maybe next week. I'll have some time to think about it. And Calgary's going ice fishing early. 4-13 or whatever it works out to for the numbers, I guess. 4 wins, 5 wins, somewhere there. So BC, I'll get the bye. Winnipeg, Saskatchewan are going to play. Saskatchewan's going to over Winnipeg after Zach Collaros hits the upright in Winnipeg. Then it's going to be the old series like it was for a long time there in 2006 and 2005 and 2004. BC and Saskatchewan are going to go meet BC Place Stadium. They're going to go and end up pumping the music like they always do. Will McCallum's going to come out, kick a field goal for BC, and send them to the Grey Cup. Unfortunately, Saskatchewan will be 1 kick away from making the Grey Cup. But BC goes to the Grey Cup this year.
All right,
guys. So yeah, I have Saskatchewan leading the way at I have 14-4 was what my prediction came out to. This is over under 1. I'll say it either way. So if they're 13, I'm pretty happy with that.
I'm happy either way, Trey.
I am writing down whatever the first number you all give for each.
I have it saved here. Don't worry. Like I said, I think they'll win more this year than they did in the last 2, which would be 12.5. Second, I should have kept track of better. I have a 3-way tie at 10-8 between BC, Winnipeg, and Edmonton, all at 10-8. So it's all going to come down to the season series. I've lost the schedule that I had, so I don't know which way we'll end. Let's, just for argument's sake, let's give Winnipeg the home game, and BC, being the little bit more veteran team, will play on the road, and Edmonton will be eyeing the crossover, is what I got. And Calgary, yeah, they could just call it quits now. 3 wins.
All right, so that was just to be clear, that was Winnipeg at 2, BC 3, Edmonton at 4, but all tied at 10-8. And then what do you got for the playoffs? You got Saskatchewan on the bye. You got Winnipeg and BC.
I'll give Winnipeg will get the win. Cold game in November. BC used to the Dome. Week later, Blue Bombers roll into Saskatchewan. And I kind of concur with Adam. There'll probably be some uprights hit by Collaros, and the Bombers can only do it so many times, and that's when the Cinderella story will end. Saskatchewan gets the final, and go to BC to play the Grey Cup. or they'll ultimately win, and I win my bet. And beer money.
I didn't realize Adam and I had BC going to the Grey Cup at home. That's fun. I forgot that the Grey Cup was in BC this year. So Trey breaks the mold there. Glad it's not unanimous across the board. We've got our predictions in. We'll see how these play out throughout the season. And let's get into wrapping things up here as we've almost hit the 2-hour mark on this podcast. Next week, we'll be back and do the same thing with the East Division preview and talk about any other major news before that begins. But we'll go through each of the teams. We'll fire up that crystal ball and make our win predictions here. And we couldn't find official win totals, I guess, to use. So we'll use Trey's here, but hopefully our discussion, where we're thinking these teams are at, if you do see betting odds actually go up on the official sites, you can kind of gauge what we're thinking based off of this. So, come back next week and see what we've got to say about the East Division. It's late. I'm not going to bother pulling the PowerPoint up on the slide, but you can follow us on Twitter at CF Countdown Pod or Facebook.com/CF Countdown Pod to see what we've got going on over there. Shout out to all the other great shows in the Canadian Football Podcast Network. You can find them at CF Pod Network on Twitter. Everybody's getting ready to go for a new season starting up here. Also, the Alternative Football Network at the official AFN on Twitter or alternativefootballnetwork.com. UFL season still going on, I believe. So check out all the other great content they've got there. Check out the CFC Discord community. Chat with us there throughout training camp, preseason. We'll get the weekly game threads going throughout the preseason, regular season as well. If you want to come have some live chatter there with us while you're watching the games. The link to that is in the episode description. Like I said, East preview next week. And then week after that, guys, I believe it's our fantasy draft. So get ready. We're going back to the fantasy draft again. Looking forward to that as always. But in the meantime, where can people find everything you've got going on social media? Adam, let's start with you.
Yeah, well, this will be my first or second fantasy draft because, I'll probably have to have a second one after halfway through. But nevertheless, you can find me at Adam Stewart 1. I've got all sorts of farming stuff going on in there. I've got pictures of seeding. I've got pictures of probably cows going out running in the pasture tomorrow where they'll be happy and frolicking in green grass. And, I got all sorts of cool stuff going on over on that side of thing. So give me a follow over at Adam Stewart 1. I promise if you're from Steinbach, I won't make any more jokes about you.
Trey, what about you?
You can find me in the TCU at Trey Harness link. I always got horse racing, UFC, football stuff. Let's throw up here. Preakness weekend this weekend. Give me Catching Freedom at 6-1 morning line odds. There we go. Because the favorite got scratched. So when the favorite gets scratched, the madness happens. But other than that, nothing else. Let's just get out of here.
Yes, let's get out of here before the 2-hour mark, before the YouTube unplugs us or something. I don't know. I'm surprised they haven't shut us down already. You can find me at Cooper Trooper 42, but why would you? I don't tweet much. You can find Mike at Mike Garrow there as well. Still waiting for him to make his eventual return to the podcast. We're excited for the season ramping up soon. Enjoy the preseason game this Monday. Enjoy the long weekend, everybody. Whatever platform you're watching or listening on, we appreciate if you do the fun things such as like, comment, subscribe, rate, review, share the show with your friends. Help us grow the show. We really appreciate all of those things. On behalf of our panel this evening, Trey and Adam, I'm Ryan saying thank you for listening. Take care. Have a good one. Bye. And here's to the next 250.